Okay. I'm going to start us off by talking about what our title is, Commentary Trepidation. We're now living in a time when if you want to talk about certain subjects, there's a lot of, should I talk about this? Or dancing around using certain terminology, phrases, writing out something and going, actually, no, I can't say this or I can't publish this because I could get banned.
Basically fear of using bad words.
Yeah.
Or using wrong speak.
And if that's not... it then evolves a step further from that and it becomes thought control, because then you start going, should I be thinking, if I can't say this, should I be thinking it? And then it puts that trepidation of like, I shouldn't have, should I not have these opinions?
Yeah.
And it starts off with the simple things of like, getting deplatformed from certain publications, websites, etc. It then moves on to demonetization, which is a bit more extreme in my opinion. Of instead of just, it's one thing to say you can't be on here altogether, it's second to say you can be on here, but if you don't say the right thing, you won't, not that you won't get rewarded, but you can be here as long as you're saying the right things, is probably the best way to phrase it. Why have we let things get this far? And I think this is also like the argument why free speech is so important.
Well, the short answer is probably people just don't pay attention and they don't see a problem and they don't see these things.
Boiling a frog.
People weren't ready for the internet. This is going to end up being something that's going to be brought up every single episode probably. I'm going to try and only bring this up once, but people were not,
because it's like, I agree.
What the internet has changed and everything, and it's messed up a whole bunch of stuff.
We're too immature as a species is the phrase I like to use for what we've achieved technologically, but our cultures haven't been able to sort of find a way to be compatible, yet we're smushing them together and they're being forced upon each other.
I think
that's probably a big part of it.
Maybe in part it's because people have almost forsaken and they've given up on their ability to go against the mainstream narrative. That people will go with the collective more often than not and feel pressured into doing that, and then maybe that's a product. So it's almost like a cyclical effect where
more of a mob rule or a peer pressure.
Well, it's probably a little bit of both, but I mean, what is the difference between mob rule and peer pressure in a way?
I'd say mob rule, if I was going to define them,
the same sort of
it's
effect, but
mob rule is everyone else is doing it, so I better join in because it looks like a good time, I guess, is like a way to boil it down. Paraphrasing it, it's sort of a very loose way of phrasing it. And then peer pressure more directly is you might not agree with us now, but you need to join us, otherwise you're wrong. And it's constant abrasion of that wearing down someone to the point where they just go, fine, I agree.
And peer pressure is coming from individual entities in your social landscape, I guess. Like different people, and maybe that's peers. That's a clue in the name, I guess. But I think both these things could be motivating factors, and it's probably even stuff like the trepidation of the public response in general, like that can manifest in the chat and manifest in other forms of social media. It could just Twitter backlashes.
If you say the wrong thing, you'll get slated, and it's a bombardment.
So don't use Twitter, don't use Facebook, don't use social media, don't really use 4chan or anything like that too much. There's not like that would be separate anyway. But
I mean, that's while we're on this,
kept me out of that. So
I think this is a good opportunity. It's like a little mini segue, just like before we continue. Is like whilst we're on the free speech subject, or one of them amongst fucking many. At least our thoughts on like free speech, and there's the idea of freedom of or freedom from lawful consequences and freedom from social consequences.
There's always going to be consequences.
Socially. Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. But,
those are accepted. But at the same time,
social consequences are compelled, then
and when they're nurtured,
problem.
I think, so we're both on the same way.
I think we're definitely on the same way. I think people's freedom of thought should be facilitated, not controlled.
Yeah, it should be encouraged, not discouraged. the main problem being that, like, if there's a social consequence, it should be a natural social consequence, and I'll define that more by saying what the conclusion people would come to on their own without having a push from someone else telling them that's the way they should think and that's what they should condemn. Because when people are being told what to condemn,
the idea of a natural social consequence is easier to just. It's easier to kind of have an idea what it means and actually define it, isn't it? Like, it's quite
I think
hard
I did
to
it.
say,
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's a good way of putting it forward. Basically, it should be.
I mean, like, coming up with a specific example of what would be a natural social consequence and why is it a natural social consequence? Like, it would be quite difficult to say. Well, what is the natural social consequence?
People berating
of
someone from
somebody pushing somebody else off
yeah.
a cliff. Like what? Or well, I suppose
people have
speech, but,
people will be able to
natural...
come to their own conclusions that was a bad thing without a higher. I'm not gonna say higher power, but a higher entity of power. Telling them that was a bad thing.
But a conclusion is not a consequence. So what should be the natural consequence of say somebody calling somebody a bitch? Like, if somebody calls somebody a bitch, what's the natural social consequence?
Oh, okay, right, yes. I meant more of like, in terms of not what the outcome of the consequence is, but the fact that people would have a problem with it is more what I was referring to. But for example, if we're going to go with that, like calling someone a bitch,
that's what I mean.
It's
I know
fine
what
to
you mean
berate
by using
someone.
The term. I'm just saying that I think like actually knowing exactly what
it's fine to berate someone.
Consequence is quite hard.
It might be fine to shun them. It might be fine. And there's a difference between shunning and deplatforming as well there. That might be fine and that might be acceptable. We can't use the term fair because I don't think that's really the right applicable thing to use here. But it's a case of what seems like a reasonable outcome for what was done.
Yeah.
And then you can have unreasonable outcomes for actions.
Is that what happens in response to somebody's offensive tweet should be the response of the people, not the response of the platform. So
people should turn around
and that thing that
and
they
also
said that was so upsetting to everybody should then affect them in the way that it would do because the people are going to be looking at this person and saying, "Oh, well, okay, does their worldview suit my worldview in a way that
they can turn around and think this is a detestable person and I won't value what he has to say further."
And presumably, fine. I mean, employers are looking.
People shouldn't be making death threats at him instead.
Yeah, but this is the thing because it's you'll notice in more anonymous sites, the communications will be, far from trepid.
Because there's no consequence.
Yeah, exactly.
But that also means that the replies are gonna be more cases of there's two sides to sort of what happens in terms of reaction.
You get more truth and more untruth.
Well, no, not even that. You get more people who would just go, I can say whatever I want back because there's no consequence to what I have to say back to you and what you think. And then the other thing that happens is people just go, not even going to bother replying. Doesn't matter because they're not gonna. If I send them a reply, they're going to read it, but they might choose to ignore it. And second is, it doesn't necessarily mean anything because they're anonymous. They don't have to then take the baggage of the outcome of a drama, for example, with them.
That's what I mean. So you get more truth in that.
But you also get a lot of people going, "I'm not going to bother."
Get more honesty.
Yeah, I agree that.
But
yes.
you also get more
one side
dishonesty as well.
Yeah, you get three things.
Yeah,
you get those two. But I'm saying you also get people just ignoring because they just go, what's the point of berating them?
So then you get
they're not going to carry this.
So you get some people who are like, well, I'm not even going to dignify this because it's nonsense.
And they're not even necessarily saying that. They might just walk away.
Yeah, well, that's it.
There's a zero outcome. But so we're in a point where, like, we are now, fair enough. Like, I get that private companies can decide what kind of communication they want going on their platforms. They're entitled to that to the degree where when they're small and they're used privately and they're used for certain purposes, we have reached a point where, for example, people are completing official government business on these platforms, and that's a topic other people have discussed to death already, of what's happened with Twitter being used by politicians of various countries, and it's like, well, you know, that's they're no longer in the power of like the owner of the platform. It then becomes owned by the power of the governing body. And so, should Twitter be able to have any kind of ruling? And then if the government decides, well, there's, you know, in America, for American citizens, there's, you know, freedom of speech. I mean, should they be able to fucking stop anything?
Out of my realm,
yeah, it gets so messy, and it's just like, again, this goes around full circle to, we haven't thought this through enough, but we're doing it.
And the thing is, if somebody has thought it through, then it's probably the case that everything's just being engineered. And, you know, the people who sort of thought it through are the ones maybe that are exercising the control over things. And I mean, like I said, mentioned a few times, I think now, but it's very hard to trust anything in the age of the internet. You know, like.
I mean, what's brought about this topic, and I mean, apart from the fact that it's absolutely necessary because it's affecting so many people, but for me personally, it makes me think about it is, there have been times when I've gone to write a comment and I've just gone, I absolutely can't say this. It will literally just be throwing my account away.
Yeah, I will
it's just
censor my commentary.
Fuck's sake, I shouldn't have to do that.
And then it's like sometimes you put something, you go, somebody's gonna say this thing about this because they. Like,
I don't care so much.
Predict the response.
Yeah, I actually do. No, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. I've gone to write things, or I've written things and gone, actually, fuck it, I'll delete this, because it's like, even if it's just going to be misunderstood, or, you know, I've responded to someone to say, here's why I think you're wrong, and they've not understood that I think they thought that I'm agreeing with them, perhaps, and they've like, it's like, no, this was to like tear your argument apart, not to reinforce it, but maybe that means I've done a bad job of wording myself if they've not understood it. Maybe it's their fault for not understanding what I had to say, but also, like, it's hard to have these conversations on the internet because, and I think, like we discussed last week about, you know, being misunderstood because there's no sarcasm. When we talked about Poe's law, there's no way to like properly convey sarcasm without using like pictures of faces to like blow it up and make it very obvious and like really highlight the satirical part.
Unless you're like deep in the context, I think, you know, if you're already aware of certain kind of context, that, you know, you can probably pick up sarcasm sometimes if it's engineered well enough. But like it's a complex landscape out there on the interweb.
There's that side of, I don't like the idea, I can't say this because it's gonna, I don't care if it's gonna like blow up and people are gonna like argue with me. That's probably good because it's fine. I'm at the point now in life where I'm quite happy to stand my ground and argue back, and I'm always very calm when I'm composing posts that are going to end up on social media, that I will make sure that I don't write something impassioned and emotional, because that's not going to achieve anything. I always, you know, lean more on calm and logical, because I'm going to have a more higher chance of successfully conveying what I have to say. And also, if I'm not going to convince the person that I'm aiming it at, I've got a better chance of people going, okay, yeah, this person's got something good to say, I like that. And they're not going to do that if I'm fucking blowing my lid, chucking loads of swear words in, and, you know, going and making mistakes, because when you're you know, all rolled up, you're not gonna fucking manage to cut, you know, do something correctly. You will make mistakes, and you will continue, and you'll submit your final revision of something.
And I mean, you're judging yourself by your own standards and that as well, because I mean, you know, you're probably thinking, well, when I see somebody else using this language, when they're saying shit, fuck, bollocks every like sentence. Like,
there's nothing wrong with like chucking expletives in. It depends on the and oh god, that's something I could talk about all day.
Context and that.
It depends on the context. It depends on the
context is king of all. I can't remember who said that. I'm sure somebody said it, and if they didn't, like, well,
what's it called? The motive behind like an expletive. I think it's okay to use fucking to like exaggerate how you're feeling, because you can do it in a calm such way. But if people are just going, you're a cunt, you're a cunt.
You know, if you think,
I'm sure
you've got to be somehow self-aware that you're on at least what can be loosely construed as a public platform, and then it's like you're out there just like making yourself come across like, you know, somebody that, whether they're a decent person or not, is not going to be liked by, like, say, certain other kinds of persons, because, you know, prudish people or whatever. I mean, when I see it, you know, it's not like I'll go, oh, I think this person's a bad person because they're using swear words. What I'm thinking is like, they don't really care if, like, you know, whatever, like, their nan or something reads it, or like somebody's auntie, or
but
like
but
one
exactly,
of their kids
because I
sees
just
it one day,
fucking
or anybody they, you know.
Exactly what we're talking about. I've just done is I used the phrase "you're a cunt, you're a cunt, you're a cunt" as an example, and therefore I had this thought, and you can go back and look at my fucking eyes and go, wait, can I say that? Do I want to leave that in? No, I don't want to edit this. And it's like, I like the idea that something like this would one day be monetizable, but then I'm having to constantly second guess everything, going, can I say this? Can I leave that in? Is that going to cause a problem because of what's happened historically with the adpocalypse and everything like that? It's, you know, all these things suddenly become, no, we don't want this, we don't want to use this. But if there's a market for it, that should be what says what gets monetized at the end of the day, not someone's opinions.
I mean, yeah, it seemed like one of the biggest values of YouTube in the entire first place of it, and I mean, I suppose to an extension, Twitter and things like that, is that it was a completely democratic platform. And with YouTube,
you just broadcast yourself. Yeah, that's all you needed to do.
Yeah,
and people decided what was good and what was bad.
Your success was based on, like, how many views you were getting. If you translated that as basically votes, it's completely.
It was a good metric to measure that by.
But I mean, yeah, they seem to have been trying to make these platforms less and less democratic, and I say they, I'm not too sure who they are, and
it was intrusive, but get it closer.
Cheers. But yeah, it's.
No, continue. Sorry.
That's alright.
I'm not trying to be distracting.
No, you can. Yeah, I completely lost where direction I thought was going with that one. But yeah, it's
my bad.
It's another form of control.
And with this, I mean, we've probably covered it some already, but you know, it leads us on to your topic of organic media versus engineered media.
Yeah. Well, this is more of an observation about the nature of all media that I've had the other day, and it seems like media falls into two categories that seem to bleed over somewhat. So it's not a polarization that occurs. It's a tendency, and that's with the idea that some media is clearly engineered. There's an engineered sense that media can be defined by.
It's like an example.
Also, well, okay,
like things that are planned out productions, and
so,
they've had like boards of people going, "Oh, this is this is popular. Include this. This is good. Can't say this." That sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's all sort of contrived and planned
but also,
first.
Well, in any sense, created artificially. So almost like artificial media. I mean, cartoons, I suppose, in a way, would be engineered media. A film, because it has a play, a script to it, would be engineered. Basically, all these things are forms of engineering. Yeah. And then there's other media that you could say that you're just filming nature, or recording a conversation, and these forms of media are highly organic. Now, in
a sense, what reality TV was supposed to be.
Yeah, so
reality TV ended up becoming engineered media, but originally it was designed to be organic.
It's been presented as more organic than it actually is, put it that way.
That was the original intention, but it became corrupted, is what I'd like to say.
This is the thing, yeah. I mean, documentaries, you could say, are set slightly engineered, but like lean towards organic. Now, it seems that with the advent of YouTube, it seems like more organic media seems to be a big thing. It's like, people want these kind of like raw, unscripted, or at least semi-unscripted demonstrations of things. And even if it has got I'm noticing a very it's a weird, sometimes very sugary sweet sort of engineered artificialness to some of the content that's on YouTube, where you get people filming their. I mean, Sue watches a lot of snake videos, and there's people breeding snakes and whatnot, and there's always this like super happy, like, I'm super cheerful, I'm doing what I do every day, and everything's super great. So it's almost like, again, it's almost like that reality TV show type thing that you say about where
they're not letting the like truth of their situation necessarily bleed through, where she'd be like,
yeah,
I'm having a shit week, but it's okay, look,
yeah.
I'm going to keep making this snake video today. So, you know, things aren't great, and if I look a bit glum, that's why, but let's get on with it. Here's my snake, and they're not going to be as upbeat because they're letting the little bit of reality and truth bleed through. You know,
so
things aren't
there is
great.
an amount of engineeredness to it sometimes, but there is still, you know, there's other people doing makeup videos and things like that. I mean, that's very organic. I mean, although, you know, what they're doing to themselves probably isn't organic. The media is. It's just them doing something and going, oh, look at this makeup, isn't it nice, or whatever. And I don't know, whatever people say when they put makeup on. It's not something I've done since I was probably about 3. But yeah, it seems like something that I've not heard anybody ever mention before, that seems to be maybe people could have a preference towards different orientations of this like engineered or organic media. So I suppose the most engineered media you could probably imagine is like, I don't know, the Marvel movies. I mean, I can't stand the Marvel movies. I love Marvel. I love the comics and stuff. The movies, I can't stand them because it's just like it's all so artificial. It's so engineered. And with the comics, it's just somebody's drawings, which, I mean, you know, I suppose
someone was doing something they liked to do out of like
at least
passion
in a
of
sense,
love.
That's something organic. It's
a labour of passion or labour of love. But these have been created more for, we need to hit the right demographics, and we need to make sure it includes this topic, and we need to make sure it has this, and we want to use this storyline, but we're going to need to change it because it needs to make sure that it fits for a modern day, and we need to include this product, and we need to make these references. And it ends up being, you know, a dozen different fucking chefs sticking their spoon in the pot because it all needs to be contrived in a way that it's correct for the modern day and the target audiences to be able to achieve fiscal, you know, success, as well as being recognised and making sure the actors all get put forward for awards, etc., rather than just someone going, hey, I like doing this because I think these are cool and I've had this idea and I'm going to run with it, and this, I'm making this for me, but someone else might enjoy this. That would be a bonus too. Yeah. And that's the difference. I think that is that a good breakdown?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily need to mean real things and fictional things. It can be down to someone doing something because that's what feels right to them. Yeah. And then someone doing something because that's what they're told is right. Yeah.
It's the difference between something being manufactured and something being just there.
Something that evolved just metaphorically. Rather than something that got
presented and created. It's possibly the difference between a watercolour painting and a piece of graphic design or something in terms of like that sort of media. If you're going to look at like
metaphorically rather than like 3D literally
piece of media, in an analogous sense, analogous. Anyway,
okay, but I can see why I don't think engineered media is necessarily bad, but I would definitely have more of an appreciation for organic media.
I'm not saying it is. I'm saying personally,
I'm not suggesting that. But I can see why there's a greater appreciation for organic media.
Yeah, I think that's
a personal perspective as well.
There's more of a appreciation for organic media than people maybe would have thought in the past. Because I mean, otherwise, maybe the mainstream media would have been doing that in the first place more. But I mean, I suppose in a way they did. I mean, they do, every now and again they try and shoehorn real people into things in certain aspects. And I mean, in the news as well, which I suppose is some sort of complete balance between organic and engineered media. In a way, it's like set up in a very specific kind of way, presenting things in a very specific kind of way, with structure and order to it, plans and, you know, ways or whatever. But what they're showing is reality.
But they'll shelter parts of it, and it'll be, here's the reality that we're engineering for you to see.
No, that's the thing. I think like the news media nowadays, the mainstream news media, is way too far on the side of engineering things, and they are
pushing narratives.
The
and
media
things
maybe
like
should be a harmony and a balance of organic and engineered media, but in actuality and in reality at the moment, it's playing out more like it's mostly engineered, or it's at least engineering. Yeah. But it's just an idea that I think there's a lot of area to think about in it. It's, there's probably something to it. It's just I haven't quite got that far yet. Got as far as thinking that this is a thing. There is a way of you can there's a way you can describe media as this kind of dichotomy.
Cool. So we've discussed about what it is and breaking that down quite nicely, I think. So we can always come back to it as a topic in the future. Once,
you can always do that.
If it's like matured and
because this is the thing.
Brewed
at the moment, this is just an idea, and I think what we're doing here is just discussing ideas. We're having ideas and then sharing the ideas.
It's nice to have a platform to be able to do it as well.
Yeah.
Rather than to be lost into like half sober ramblings that just like, oh yeah, we did talk about that once several years ago, and it doesn't even get like stores of memories. It's nice to sort of archive conversations of here was our stream of thought. It was quite cool. So let's talk about culture, especially pop culture. From what I've gathered, the topic is in 80s and 90s was black supremacy in a sense, that's air quotes black supremacy, more of in a soft way of
that came to me.
That side of culture was celebrated and pushed. I mean, if we look for things examples like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and things
Fresh
like that.
Prince of Bel-Air was super popular.
And lots of
Keenan
other things.
and Kel was super popular
because they were really good media as well. They were really good TV programs.
Mr. T was everybody's.
Everyone liked these programs. I've never met anyone who said no, I didn't like that. That was rubbish.
Mike Tyson was regarded as the badass. The real life.
He was the greatest. He was the ultimate.
All these people were held in massive high regard by mainly white societies or majority
Western
white societies,
culture.
Western culture in the 80s and 90s, to my memory. And this wasn't even the media trying to push this or anything like that. This is just the reality. There's Linford Christie and Chris Akabusi and stuff, as people knew in the UK that those were the fastest guys we had in the country. They were everybody looked up to them. And I think it even goes further than that, because it was the few African descent and black guys in the school that we went to, they were always the most popular kids. Everybody thought they were great. They were the fastest runners. They were the strongest. They were also the tallest. So I think
before we continue, I think it's important to say that we didn't, or that wasn't a bad thing. That's not what's being suggested here. Before we continue,
no, of course not.
Yeah, of course.
No, it's the opposite.
But we're in a day and age where we need to very specifically state that, because otherwise people go up on high horses.
I think this is one of those topics that your whole commentary trepidation theory becomes very, very pertinent.
Exactly. So this topic is saying that was a
hard
bad
not
thing.
to hate speech as soon as you say anything about any sort of ethnicity, but the whole point of this is to demonstrate that the whole fears over the ideas of white racism are completely unsubstantiated. I think trying to say that or trying that anybody saying that England or America are racist countries and have been racist countries and always have been, I think they stopped being they stopped being racist countries long times ago.
Yeah, and with these kind of in these different forms of media
in the first place,
I'm someone could say, oh yeah, but you're just parading them around for the purpose of entertainment. It's no, it's not that. They were genuinely revered and celebrated individuals. They were respected, that they would be, fucking look at Will Smith now. He's one of the most successful actors, considering he started from such humble backgrounds in terms of he was just a sitcom actor. That's how his career began. and he could be in any movie now. You don't see someone like Ray Romano in action films, comedy films, romance films, etc., sci-fi, etc. They generally were, and are really well appreciated members of like these societies they're parts of, and they've had such massive impacts. People still look back and say, "Oh, Good Burger was my favourite film," and things like that. And I think maybe with the generation of millennials growing up with these impacts, maybe that's part of the influence of why there is the need to.
There could be also
develops further.
I think
and sometimes like beer fucking
reason.
becomes like fucking really strong to the point where it's not consumable anymore. And when you let something brew like that, might be why there's like this idea of black supremacy and it's mutated phrases like racism.
I've got lots of theories where that whole idea came from, where the whole sort of the idea that but both the sort of social justice we're seeing nowadays that seems to angle towards protection of minorities or whatever. But
it's certainly particularly one contributing factor. And that's an interesting hypothesis.
Well, I mean,
I'd say it can substantially hold ground.
Yeah. That's what I've got.
No, I think there wasn't much to that one, but it's a really good point to make.
It's just one of those.
And
things
we'll probably call back to that one when we're talking about other topics in the future. If I want you to take some time to think of a name for it.
Think of a name for what?
Coin a phrase for your hypothesis, because I expect there will be other topics where we in the future where we call back when, that's probably a contributing factor of this. So not in the here and now, but take some time, coin it as a phrase, because I think it's substantially relevant.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I won't come up with a name for it yet, because I think there's a lot more to it that needs to be gone through if you want to.
But to be able to just refer to it by a phrase rather than saying.
What I might have to do is go away and think about what I'm not allowed to say, and then come back and work with that, because I've got some amount of theories. Let's go through.
I mean, we live with phrases like whitewashing and things like that every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, black veneration, something like that. It's not got a negative connotation
because it's not quite black supremacy. It's not quite or anything like that. It's but it's it's a recognition.
It's not necessarily. It's not a bad thing either.
And I don't think it never even focused on. I don't think anybody ever in the 80s and 90s would stop to think oh, Keenan and Kel's really, really funny show, and they're black guys. It's nobody was thinking that,
right? But a colleague. This is something quite sad.
It was just
one of my colleagues. His mum wouldn't let him watch Keenan and Kel because she was racist, and that's really fucking tragic to learn that.
I mean, they are out there,
it's just it's sad that was a case though.
I don't think his mum any higher concentration of racists in any other race.
No, that's what I'm saying. But
it's just still think enough about race to be able to be racist in the first place.
It's still a sad matter. And then fucking his mum would be at work on a Saturday, so it'd just be him, his siblings, and his dad watching TV, and his dad go on, chuck sister on, and things like that. It's because they weren't allowed these opportunities because of an actual racist, withholding that from them, and that is sad. But it's funny to see that had funny in the loose term, not literally funny. To see that was still a thing during that time period, and it will be forever. To be honest, racism's never going to disappear.
One of my theories
is why constantly perpetuated because we're still talking about it.
There's too much racism, or there's all this racism that still happens, is because that the people who are the millennials and boomers of today or whatever were taught in school that basically don't be bad to people of the other race, and then from other races other than your own or whatever, and that's what racism is. So don't be racist, and so they took that as don't be bad to black people, and that's what racism is. And then
as in that's what they've interpreted.
Yeah, because they had such
is.
a low resolution sort of definition of what racism is on a broader scale and how it can manifest.
Rather than accepting it as the universal term of don't treat any race with prejudice.
They're showing these videos of like somebody getting racial abuse in school or whatever, and it's like, you know, always like a black guy or a black girl or whatever, and then they're you know, whatever, 9-10 years old, and they're going, right, racism, don't be bad to black people.
Because they're taking it literally rather than ideologically and as a principled example. And that
there's lots of racism because that's what they were taught in school, you know. And then now they just
I like
it everywhere.
The what is it called? Morgan Freeman's principle of like, if you want racism to stop, just stop talking about it.
Yeah,
it won't occur if you don't teach people to do it, and people learn to do it because they get dangled. Here is something that happens. Here is your forbidden fruit. You're not allowed to eat it, and most people go, "Yeah, fine, I don't want forbidden fruit." And some people go, "Ooh, I want some of that," and then they'll be racist because they want to be fucking.
Yeah, they just the people are
contrarian. It's probably for lack of a better term. They want to have something special about them. And that's why they do it. And that's... I'll specify actual, like, hate-filled thoughts, not jokes. And we need to make jokes about it as long as it's still going on, because I believe jokes take power away from something. If you can laugh at something, it stops being something that actually holds power over someone's lives. I stand very, very strongly by that principle. So that's why I think we need to be able to make jokes about it until it stops. But are we then contributing in the sense of if the answer is to stop talking about it, it's not that it should be forbidden, but just we should choose not to, because that's a big separation as well. You know, we should all make the choice. If one day we're all going to make the choice to stop talking about it, it should be a choice, not like an enforced rule.
I mean, I think honestly the answer to the race problem or the problem of race in any sense that you can draw any problems from the concept or any surrounding issues is individualism. The answer is individualism, because if we just argue that,
if we focus on ourselves rather than each other.
Well, this is going to be a massive tangent, but my theory is that human individuals are so distinct as to make Darwin's finches look homogenous. So that's to say that
I love that statement.
Distinct species of finches are more alike, or at least distinct genuses of species or whatever.
And let's just explain that to people who aren't like familiar with Darwin's finches. But like,
so Darwin's finches.
Was it on the Galapagos Isles? Yeah. And do you want to?
Okay, so Darwin turns up and he goes, all these finches are basically the same finch, but they've all got different beaks, so I'm going to classify them differently, and that's going to give me some ideas about evolution that I'm going to put in a book. That's the really simple...
I'll go into a little bit more because I like it so much. Of like, you got fucking shovel beaks that are better for digging, so they can get worms out the ground, and finner beaks that could get insects from inside wood, and ones that crush nuts, and ones that are better at gathering berries. And that's why they'd all evolved in different ways.
Natural selection.
I thought that's cool. It's a cool thing. Like, but yeah. So then to say that two people are
any
more
two people,
different
even within families,
two different
even
finches.
You know, within. Brothers and sisters, even twins, like, you know, sometimes you'll get identical twins, and maybe you could say that they're, you know, that's how those finches work or whatever, but the rest of the time is even between
because you get diversity of opinion,
within races, but there's not just diversity of races, but there's diversity within races, and there's also diversity within family groups and lineages and everything, to the point where everybody's an individual and should be characterized as a distinct entity. So with that in mind, then race becomes completely irrelevant.
Yeah,
because it just shows that anybody's capable of being anything. We do not know the extent of the human condition. We don't know what kinds of people are possible. So I mean, you know, if anybody was ever to say like, all X's are Y in sense of types of people, then it's like, well, there's only one X, so it can't be Y, because Y is another one. You know, it doesn't follow. This is literally, it doesn't make sense. And this is what I've said about prejudice before. I don't think it's the biggest problem with prejudice is not that it's immoral, it's that it's irrational and unreasonable, and it doesn't make sense. It follows a nonsensical stream of logic. It brings you to false conclusions because you're prejudging something. You're judging something before you've actually had the ability to actually inspect it or to try and identify and understand it. It's, it doesn't make sense, rather than...
And yet people think they found the solution to stop this, and they're really fucking hitting it hard. The thing is, like, if you've got the fucking triangle peg and you're holding the circle, no matter how fucking hard you try and force that circle in, you won't get it in without breaking it. And they're not seeing this. They're just ramming that circle in, and it is breaking.
In boxes.
It's fucking splintering at the edges, and cracks are forming. And what do they think they're going to achieve by this? But that's my opinion.
Yeah. People's expectations of each other should be built on their experience of that individual, like not on the experience of other individuals that are somehow loosely related by some kind of identity category to that individual.
Humans fit in unique shape spaces.
Measurement by proxy doesn't make sense.
Not Venn diagrams. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go a bit more lighthearted. I'm going to bring up the topic of vaping because I think there's some nuanced conversation to be had there. And I'm going to suggest it's like fucking selling sweets in the sense of...
it's completely like that.
It's become... Look at all the varieties, all these... I mean, literally sweet-smelling flavours and everything. Because cigarettes became unpopular. We've realised they're not good for your health. Like we're wrong about them historically. There was this pushed narrative,
probably even unpopular amongst smokers.
Like 60 years ago or whatever it was, that or even longer. Back in the early 1900s, of they're good for you. They give you a nice gravelly voice, and it's beneficial for your lungs and things like that. And they're completely wrong about it.
Did they ever say that in adverts? That'd be amazing if they did.
I think on posters.
Smoke Marlboro, give you a real.
I'm sure voice. I was studying like the war in school and things like that, and like they quoted some stuff in Blackadder, that was being pushed as a way to sell them. That's cool. And then in this day and age, vaping is being sold as, look, here's the healthy alternative to smoking.
Kinda, yeah. It's just it's selling.
That's what.
It's selling again, the coolness of smoking with the remember buying sweets of sweets.
And it's because
so I could go to the sweet shop.
The target
and
audience
get my bag of sweets
is
for the week.
more immature, so they want these
novelties.
They want this idea of look, I can have fucking
people love novelty.
Strawberry shortcake flavoured smoking. And smoking became uncool,
I tried the vaping thing for a short period of time as a way of trying to quit smoking, and then I gave up because it was awful, and then went back to smoking.
But the problem is, that's one side of it, is here's an alternative to cigarettes to help smokers. That's how it's sort of pushed at the very beginning, right? But there's been waves upon waves of people who never smoked cigarettes that start vaping.
Will get addicted to nicotine,
They just start vaping as, this is the new cool thing. So they realise we can't sell, cigarettes sales would, I'm sure, are declining. I've got no fucking statistics or figures. I haven't even bothered to look it up. But I see less people going out and smoking because it's more difficult. In the UK, it's not legal to smoke inside public places, in public buildings. Whereas it used to be different, 20 years ago.
It's weird though, because and maybe it's just because.
And there's not the same regulation on vaping. It's down to the establishment's own rules.
You go to the local big hospital, and then outside there's always people smoking, loads of people smoking, and it's like, is this where everybody comes to smoke? Or is it because is this why they're here, or just it's something about it. It's very poetic, at least.
It's like workplaces, though. Workplaces are the same. Car park and workplaces on the break. There's 20 people out smoking, I guess.
I'll go
but they're from like a previous generation.
Walk around smoking all the time, but
I
don't even see any people out.
That's not an official public building, This is the difference.
Yeah, true.
but yeah, so vaping's originally sort of like pushed as it's the healthy alternative to smoking to help smokers stop smoking, and it ended up just drawing in a new generation of people who wouldn't have considered smoking cigarettes. They had no appeal for smoking cigarettes, but they've gone, yeah, vaping seems cool, I'll do that. It's also really gay. It's just like, it's a really fucking lame version of smoking. Like, it's just lame.
Yeah. Lame
and then, you know, I walk past someone smoking a cigarette, oh, doesn't smell great. I walk past someone like vaping, like, oh, that smells sickly. It's like, it doesn't smell like unpleasant, it just smells just like, ugh.
And then it's missing a lot of the things that cigarettes have in them as well. So it's like, it's actually not a really good way of quitting smoking, because it will just mean that you're doing the same thing as smoking, and then but you're not getting the same effect of it, and it's just like makes it confusing and frustrating.
You're getting the nicotine and you're getting the routine.
I think there's other chemicals in cigarettes that are or do have an addictive nature, or it could be that there's a mental addictiveness that then comes with those chemicals, and the recognize your body sensation that it's then had that, because it's like if I've just been vaping and then I'd be like stressed, go and have a cigarette instead. Let's try and see
it
if
wasn't
that
enough. It didn't scratch the itch.
But what would happen then when I'd have that cigarette is I'd get the same effect of if I hadn't had a cigarette for like 3 or 4 days, because on other previous times when I've quit smoking, if I've then gone, I've been stressed and somebody's gone, oh, do you want a cigarette? And I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, why not? Then at that point, you get this special nicotine hit that you only get if you've not had a cigarette for a long time.
Moment,
and it is just like, you feel like it's just almost like a chemical drug, which you probably, you know,
well, I mean, it
feels like a... Well, yeah, because it is, I suppose, basically, but you get this like kind of wave like sweep down your body sort of thing, and you go all tingly. Like, it's
really
after having vaping for a while and then having a cigarette, I had that effect, and then so like, when I went back to the vape,
something
and then
that
happened
tobacco
again.
has.
Yeah, so there's definitely something in there that's missing that doesn't, you know, the whole there's an effect that's missing from it.
I think there was kind of like, not a mission statement with vaping, but there was like, you know, here's the purpose of this, and then it's fucking missed the point entirely.
It's probably funded by the tobacco companies.
It's evidently, you know, lots of studies are coming out saying a lot of the oils, because they're not regulated, they'll contain chemicals that are bad for you, and then we don't even know like what the impact of the ones that are regulated and don't have these necessary harmful chemicals could still be having an impact. And then it's popularised it for people who wouldn't be smoking otherwise, wouldn't be having nicotine input otherwise, and now having it because something more appealing did come along and did catch their attention. So they're going to have potentially the negative health impacts. They're going to be addicted to something. They're going to be spending something, and maybe that part of it is like, oh, you know, fucking, we're not going to be able to get all this, you know, cigarette tax money anymore.
Yeah,
so we're getting vaping tax money. It's
got to be a net benefit for the cigarette companies in the long run, in a sense, because it's, you know, like you say, it brings new people into being addicted.
Someone's
to nicotine.
Still selling the tobacco or the nicotine.
If one time they're out and they haven't got their vape pen, or the vape pen's broke or whatever, and all they can do is go and buy a pack of cigarettes or something, or somebody's got a cigarette and they're like, oh, do you want a cigarette instead?
Yeah, so
and then they're like, oh, I'll just have the one cigarette. Then if I'm correct,
I want
in
nicotine,
saying that there's
and that's
something
the
else
source
in there
of it. Yeah,
that's more addictive, and they go, oh, actually, this is actually quite good. Oh, this is a bit better than the other thing. I'm going to go on to this instead. It could be a gateway. It could be like a gateway drug to cigarettes.
Someone's tweet made me laugh though, and I'll end on that. Was what's gayer than sucking a dick? Vaping cum. That was
vaping in general is probably isn't it? No, everybody knows the only way to smoke anything is big fat plants.
So we'll go to something a bit more I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and it's like been a superfluous topic that we've dropped because we've been running low on time, but we'll go into this one. Is the old phrase of ignorance is bliss. And then,
which I have wrestled with.
Yeah, I wrestle with a lot. I don't like the idea of it at all.
Yeah,
and what's set amongst that motion of thoughts was just the I think it's Arch Enemy's song "Carry the Cross," which just has the simple line of "ignorance is not bliss," and that just triggered the chain of thoughts of like, yeah, no, that might be right. Let's think about this lots and lots over many years. Because I think there's two types of ignorance. There's an ignorance of not knowing any better, being stupid, being uneducated, not necessarily your fault, because, you just hadn't had an opportunity to learn the information, perhaps. And then there's purposeful ignorance, which is, of course, knowing better, but choosing to continue as you were, even if you know it's not the right thing. And I think doing so is selfish. And choosing bliss isn't necessarily the best thing to do. It might not be the moral thing to do. If you can act, I can't think of an example. I probably will do though. But if you can act in a way that you know that you're not doing something right. I mean, I don't know, choosing not to recycle because you're quite blissful in being a sloth and just putting recyclable items straight into the bin.
Earlier on, I was walking back to the shop and I saw a guy just chuck a packet into a bush. And I nearly just went and put my hands in and took it out of the bush. But I just thought, people looking at me are just going to go, I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like, it seemed...
But he knew better, and he blissfully chose to be ignorant by putting the rubbish straight into the bush anyway. And I think it's an immoral act, and I would rather suffer through... And that's the other side of it, I guess. Before I give my example of what I would rather do.
I'm not sure if I call it so much immoral, but it's...
There's also the other choice of if you didn't know what was going on in the world, terrible things occurring daily, you might be less unhappy. But by choose, is it through choice or is it because it's forced upon you? By being knowledgeable about terrible things, thinking about them, reflecting on them, making your own decisions, making your own judgments, altering your way of life, altering how you perceive the world.
I think when it's willful ignorance, maybe, but if it's just ignorance, it's some ignorance is just because people are ignorant.
They don't know
by
any
nature,
better,
and they're not. They're making genuinely making mistakes. They can't be. Can't exactly be selfish in that sense.
But that's what I'm saying is purposeful ignorance, and it does occur a lot.
But I mean, at the same time, I think that would also show they're ignorant, because if they're making the choice of the selfish way of doing things, and it shows that that's not going to lead to their bliss, I think a lot of the time...
I don't know, because what I was going to say
I would question the original
knowledge is a burden
principle that ignorance is bliss. I think burdens are a good thing. I think if anything,
knowledge is a burden is probably the opposite of
ignorance is bliss problem in the first place would be that either bliss is overrated, or that ignorance doesn't in fact always lead to bliss. In fact, ignorance a lot of the time can lead to bad things happening. And I mean, maybe you could say, well, they're just going to ignore those bad things happening and then ignore everything. It's like, you can't ignore everything forever, surely.
Because it catches up with you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I would rather be burdened.
Maybe they are being selfish, right? So maybe it is selfish, but in actuality, it's not going to manifest very well for them. It's not going to actually do them any favors. They're not ultimately going to be bettering things for themselves through their ignorance.
But if it means they can avoid taking responsibility, etc., when they probably know they should, they're creating a bliss for themselves in that sense.
Well, I think when you ignore responsibilities that you could and should take, and if you ignore things that you could and should do, then that doesn't lead to bliss. And I mean, that you could say, okay, they ignore these things, and they're just gonna I mean, in a way, the final consequence of the whole idea of ignorance equals bliss is that probably everybody should just go and do a whole bunch of acid or something, or
what?
or because I mean that way they'll be completely ignorant of everything, and they might just end up
Right.
like just
So
I don't know, dying of an acid overdose in this like sort of crazy blissful state. And
I
I've
think
not
you've
done
lost.
acid.
I think you've lost me there, though. Wait.
No, well, maybe.
Wait.
Let's go. We'll rewind.
Dial back.
Because I think what I said just made sense. I'm not just making appeals for acid because I've never actually done acid.
No, I know that, but I mean, like, what would the purpose of putting everyone in a catatonic state achieve?
Well, that would give them an ultimate sense of some sort of ignorance of reality in a way, because reality would start. Reality, inverted commas, would start behaving completely other. If you just overdose them on acid, I mean, and they'll just have a mad trip out.
That's what heroin addicts do. That is their life.
And they'll be in a state of bliss and then die. Or like even in like an ecstasy overdose or something. Like everybody should just be on ecstasy.
Or even without like fucking people overdose. That's what heroin addicts are trying to achieve.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. But that's what I'm saying.
Bliss.
That's one of the ultimate examples of this whole ignorance equals bliss thing. And look how that goes. You know? You need to get out of that. Like that's not a good place to be. That does not lead to good places of trust. Like, I've not personally. I've observed other people on that path, and it's.
If I was going to boil it down,
that is not bliss, man.
Yeah.
That's agony.
If I was going to boil it down, I think if they're your personal problems, or if they're, I'm not going to say global problems because no one can deal with global problems, but local problems, things that are not necessarily affect yourself, but affect things within your reach of being able to have an impact on you, and you be able to have an impact on them.
Yeah.
Then you should
just
choose
falls back to the taking responsibility thing, doesn't it? Yeah.
Which we've discussed with each other. We've not discussed in the recording thing. I think we should do it at some point.
Did we not mention at any point? I thought, okay, well, we can go back through the whole idea that, my theory is that there is no such thing as responsibility outside of the idea of taken responsibility. So that's that you can't make somebody responsible. You can't, you can, if you want, try and decide and attribute when you think somebody should take personal responsibility, but the only type of responsibility there is, the only responsibility there is personal responsibility, which comes from people's choice to take responsibility, to do things, and even to admit and say, okay, I was a part of this situation in this way, so I think I am responsible in this way. So then that's when you
what you're saying is,
but other
like,
than that,
from an outside perspective, is that if someone tries to enact or issue someone responsibility,
so
they shouldn't have an expectation.
You are responsible for this.
They shouldn't have an expectation that it will be carried out, and that person will take the responsibility.
I'm not responsible for anything unless I take responsibility for it. That's the closest thing to being responsible as there is. There isn't even a being responsible. There's no being responsible. There's being maybe involved in the causality of things, but there would need to be such a thing as being responsible for your own parents, and being responsible for your own grandparents, and being responsible for society outside you, to be responsible for anything at all. If
we're going to use an example, just make it more clear to other people, if you were to say, you're going to look after my hamster, you've not made them responsible for your hamster.
Yeah, no.
You're still responsible for your hamster. Yeah, it's only if they choose to actually look after that.
Nobody's responsible for the hamster. Somebody takes responsibility for the hamster, maybe. But that would happen in action. So responsibility manifests in action, and reflection, personal reflection over those actions.
So by dubbing someone with responsibility doesn't mean
it doesn't make them responsible for it.
But that's how people assume things.
They can take the responsibility or leave it. But people do seem to play this game, and the whole legal system hinges on the whole idea that we can make people responsible, or we can attribute responsibility for things. But I think really, who's responsible for the human condition? Who's responsible for their own? How responsible is somebody for who they are now? How responsible is somebody for the social effects of their environment? The effects of their environment, society, on their upbringing, and on their parents' upbringing, and for everything outside of that, and then for the fact that whatever they're being held responsible for is a bad thing, or seen as a bad thing. Like I say, the closest thing to responsibility you can do or achieve is taking responsibility. So if somebody breaks a vase, nobody is responsible. not one person is responsible for the breaking of a vase. Even if somebody is the one that we could describe as breaking the vase, like that doesn't mean that they're responsible for the broken vase, but they could take responsibility and going, didn't see that, my bad, sorry, I take a degree of responsibility, or I'll take some amount of the blame here for this, but like I didn't design my clumsy self, and it's not my fault that the human psyche is flawed, and
that was
but then you can go take further responsibility and say, I'll try and pay more attention in future. So that's taking more responsibility, and then that manifests in action when you try and achieve something through a deliberate intention, I guess.
Maybe subconsciously I've accepted and understood this for like a big portion of my life, because for example, when I do things,
I think kids feel it all the time. When the kids are told you did that, that's all your fault. It's like
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm going on something else.
Okay,
I live my life by. I personally do take the responsibilities as much as possible, in the sense of like planning ahead and working out how I can set about my environment. For example, if I think, okay, right, I'm going to be thoughtful about this now, take extra responsibilities, go out of my way to make sure this is done in such a way that then if something's, there's less chance of something to go wrong, and then I'm not putting other people in positions of them, making a mistake and having to make themselves, not having to make themselves, but put them in a position where they might make themselves responsible for an action. I mean, for example, my house, before I got a dog, I responsibly went, I'm going to dog proof everything, so everything that is of value is at a certain elevation, so it's inaccessible to my dog, so that there is not then the opportunity for someone to leave something where the dog can get to it and it can get damaged, and then going, oh, that's my bad, I'll take responsibility, because I've already taken that responsibility by making sure it wouldn't occur. Things like that. So you took responsibility. Beforehand, to prevent someone else having to maybe choose to take responsibility for a negative action that occurred later. So that's like something interesting to reflect on myself, because that probably explains like why I overthink things so much, and like
I think it's
get out of my way and like obsessively plan to make sure if I can take as much responsibility as possible to make sure things will be good.
I mean,
then that means there's less chance that someone would need to take responsibility later for something bad.
It means.
So that's just like provokes an interesting reflection upon myself.
I mean, maybe we can go into that one in more detail another time as well. I guess. Because I mean, I thought it was something that we brought up maybe on the first one, on the second one.
No, we've talked about it like several times before, but I don't think we've ever gone into it like in a session of recording.
I think it solves a lot of philosophical paradoxes if we were to just kind of just delete the whole idea of responsibility as it's conceived. Because I mean,
there's some interesting philosophical questions that can be risen around it.
Nobody's responsible for the Big Bang, so
no. You could say something like fucking if a slave gets whipped and the whip breaks, someone might have tried to previously argue that it's the slave's responsibility for the whip breaking, and that just tears them apart, like you say. It takes away philosophical paradoxes.
There is no responsibility there.
But some people would try to argue that there was, and that sort of takes away the ability to have that conversation.
Exactly.
It becomes redundant.
Well, I've not heard that argument before, but if they did, I mean,
there's a lot to that one as well. Like,
this
people argue,
it's one of the reasons why I struggle to read philosophy, because every time I read philosophy, it's like they're making appeals to both fairness and responsibility, and I don't actually think either of those things exist in human sense, like other than like a very specific other manifestation that isn't what they seem to appeal to it to be. And it's actually very rare that, like, in moral philosophy, it's almost like they always want to appeal to fairness, but none of them want to define what it means. And it's like, and even, I mean, so it's frustrating listening to a lot of YouTube philosophers and YouTube critical thinkers and commentators and such, because they'll often go, well, that doesn't seem very fair, and it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean it isn't fair?
I mean, when we tried to break it down before, I think the best we got was something along the lines of, there is a more beneficial and more good outcome for the most people, but even then, that's
my
so,
idea
like,
of fair enough.
Yeah, that's as close as we can get, I think.
There's such a thing maybe as fair enough, and that's when everybody agrees that something is fair enough.
And that's as close as we can get to fair without getting there.
Like perfect fair or something like that.
There's no objective fairness.
Yeah, there's not an objective
fairness. Maybe
exactly.
a subjective fairness.
In a mathematical sense, there can be, but then in a humanistic sense, you can't then apply those same mathematics and then expect it all to work out fine.
Because fair does not mean equal.
Yeah, because it's like if you've got 4 people and then you share a pie, should we play, or can we just go into this one? Let's play this game, okay. So we've got 4 people and there's a pie. And we're going to share this pie between 4 people.
And people would try and argue, you give 4 people a quarter each.
Okay.
And that's stupid. Yeah. Why is that stupid?
Well, there's lots of reasons. Because context, basically. Context completely destroys fairness, and that is the human context. We've
got Margaret hasn't eaten in 2 days, so maybe she should get more than a quarter. Bob doesn't like pie.
We've got Gerald paid for the entire pie.
Yeah.
And Rudolph
is a fucking asshole and treats everyone like shit, so no one really wants him to have any pie.
Yeah.
Should they all get a quarter? Fuck no.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's a good way to break it down. I like it.
Well, should they get a quarter is almost like a different question to, is it fair that they get a quarter, you know? Maybe people, it's probably easier to argue, they should get a quarter because it's easier that way.
Yeah.
You can just go,
but easy doesn't mean fair, and easy doesn't mean good.
That sounds like a mathematically correct way of doing it. So let's just use maths here and then alleviate human thinking. But like, in fairness or whatever, what they want to talk about being fair, you know, would it be fair? What if one of them baked the pie, one of them paid for the pie, the other one's stole a pie off somebody else the other day, you know, and
one of them needs to give it up because it's a socialist state. The second guy's going to the gulag.
Got, like, you know, and then this is the thing. It's like people want to apply fairness to. They want to bear in mind how nice a person is or whatever, how good a person is to what they get, and it's like, you know, it's not fair if bad things happen to good people or good things happen to bad people.
Every day.
But it's like, well, how is it not fair? Like, it just sounds like you don't want that to happen. That's more like what it is. And this is the thing with fairness. I think that what it boils down to is it's a child's idea of something they can appeal to when they don't get something their own way. So basically, when somebody says, "I don't think that's fair," what they're actually saying is, "I don't think this is the way I want it to be," or I don't think this is good for me. This hasn't worked out my way. And so fairness ends up being somebody's way. Like, this is the way I would do it, or whatever. Which is, you know, an individual thing. Everybody's going to have their own idea of what fairness is. And that's another problem with the whole pie example. It's like people are going to be like, well, they're not going to be able to agree on it. And that's why everything ends up getting divided up in even mathematical ways, because they just go, well, fair enough. But then that mathematicalness isn't...
Because fair enough's almost like, here's a compromise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when people say fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting that it seems to have some sort of, you know, it's a common utterance. Like, but people probably don't stop to think about what they mean by it and what how it applies to things. And it's, you know, yeah, it's definitely seems like if you took out fairness and responsibility out of the philosophical equation, the whole thing makes a whole lot of sense. The only thing you need to do is make sure you include empathy in it, otherwise the whole thing just blows out of the water. Like, I think, and also that you make sure you have some sort of systems that stand in for these things. Like, you know, because if you just ripped them out of society, I think they would leave big holes, like, you know, ripping religion out of society, or basically meaning, as it was. I think it was more that meaning was ripped out of society than religion. we totally sidetracked.
No, that's a good tangent.
I
like that one. It's a good conversation to have, though.
It's probably good to just bring it up because it might be important.
Because in a lot of conversations in our future, we will come up with
It'd be handy just for me to say, well, again, another example of.
It's why if you notice us dancing around saying if something's fair, it's because I didn't agree at first, but I've come to understand and accept that idea and it doesn't exist. So that's why we dance around using phrases like that. Is that fair? Is that good? We might replace it with just saying is that good, and that's why we're using that specific phrasing, because it's probably a better phrasing, even though it sounds more wishy-washy to just use the word good. So speaking of ideals,
this is another one we've had rolling over for a while because we ended up going off on tangents and talking about other things, but it's just the idea of truth as the ultimate ideal, which is an old philosophical concept that's been discussed by people right back to the ancient Greeks, and it seems like something that's coming up more and more in discussions recently. I'm noticing in the wider cultural landscape of current year, and it's more just to see. Well, I mean, is it something new to you? You ever heard of the idea of people talking about ultimate ideals or more ultimate values?
So is that what we should? Is in if I?
I suppose that maybe you've not seen too much discussion.
But if I was gonna tell you my face value analysis and interpretation of it, I guess it's something that the greater collection of humanity should maybe try to strive to achieve as a common value. Yeah,
I mean the idea of highest values. I mean, I suppose maybe it's I've just run into these areas of discussion away from the places you might frequent, so it's probably not something that's come up so much. But it's something I've seen more and more come up. People trying to champion a certain value as the highest value. So for example, happiness or social utility.
Because I would argue that we should value truth over value. We should probably value truth over progress.
What's
the point of progress if it's not honest?
This is the thing that I've wondered, because I mean I'm skeptical and hesitant to kind of pin a number one on any one given value. But I will say what I value more than something else. That's for sure. It's a case of right. What's the point of being happy if we're living a lie? That was kind of the message of the Matrix, the first Matrix film. Well, this is the thing, and I think it goes deeper than that. It's in that film.
What's the point of
having
progressing if it's all a farce?
Yeah.
This is why
I think in a lot of ways, but if you were to just look at things in reality as we have available, let's exclude any sort of matrix theories or anything.
Yeah. I wasn't suggesting about.
I'm not saying that was irrelevant. I'm just saying
the conduit of the matrix. I mean more of the moral of the story. If we look at the Matrix,
a lot of morals to that story. I think, and I'm not even sure that if there was one fundamental one. But I think being skeptical was probably one of them. To ask questions of things and look for.
How is that not valuing truth? If you're skeptical of something, you're trying to
I guess you're
whittle away what is a farce and what is
a lot of it was
honest.
Testing the ideas of truth and
What you lost on?
I'm lost for a particular direction.
I would push that. I like the idea that truth is the ultimate ideal. I don't know, if it's not, as you said, you don't necessarily want to put on a podium and say, look, this is number one, because everything's also situational, contextual. It's going to apply differently to different cultures at different times, depending on what sort of struggles that they may be collectively facing, etc. But I would rather hear a harsh truth than live a lie and be deceived about something.
That was what I was going to say, because it's got there's a utility to the truth. It's not just like it seems better. It seems like something that we want and that we like. It's useful. There's like with untruth, and this was one of the main things I wanted to have a think about, was because I've seen this in the more specific discussion that has come up, but I've seen people try and argue that that you can cause just as much good with untruth as you can with truth, or you can cause just as much utility or whatever with truth as untruth, and then I'm not actually sure if that's true, because I don't see
the value in it though.
It doesn't seem to me that you can achieve anything without truth. Like if you have no truth, if you told a dying child that had cancer, and it was incurable, inoperable, they're going to die, and if you tell them, oh, it's okay, you're going to live, everything's going to be fine, nothing good's going to come out of that. Yeah. And so presenting untruths doesn't, it might make them feel happy, and it might achieve happiness temporarily, but it's not solving a problem. This is it.
I live
even
by
question the idea of Santa and things like this. Is like, I don't quite see the value of telling lies to children for what? It doesn't seem to actually
whether
make
it's
sense.
For the idea of the whimsy, or to make them behave because of the idea of the naughty list and things like that.
I don't see the value in it. Can we not just have a character called Santa that just like we have and use around Christmas, but without trying to go, oh yeah, no, he's real and he lives in the North Pole? Because it's just like,
why can't he just be? It's like,
the first time I heard them try and explain to me, when I became aware as a very, very young child, I presumed that this Santa Claus was a fictional character, just like all the other fictional characters. But then all the adults would be like, oh no, Santa Claus is real, and I'm like, you're an idiot. It's all a game, I see.
You're trying to trick me.
But it seems like
you're trying to see if I'm gullible and laugh at me behind my back, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, that was the sensation I got. I was like, well, I already had it figured out that children are treated as being much more stupid than they actually are. Like, children are stupid, obviously, because people are stupid, but they're not that stupid.
Yeah. No, I agree. And if we're just going to use that as a little tiny side tangent, the other thing, and I suppose it reflects on the whole thing, is what would you rather do? Would you rather tell your children that you love them very much and you've worked very hard, or you've just not had much and you've scrimped and saved and put money aside, or maybe you've even gone out of your way to put yourself into debt to borrow money to make sure you can buy them a nice gift to have a really nice day when everyone else is, and we can have a collectively nice day and enjoy ourselves. Why would you tell them that someone used magic to achieve that? Why wouldn't you want to tell them that you, through whichever method you used to fund it, you did that for them? Would they not value that more than being told it was magic? And that's why I don't understand it. I like the idea of whimsy, and we can still have whimsy, but I see a value in being honest with your child around Christmas and telling them where their gift came from, because maybe that's going to give them a better perspective of objects, material items don't just come out of thin air through good behaviour. It shows that people work hard, or they do something to obtain and achieve that, and they do it because they care and because they've got strong things. I think there's more value to the truth. Yeah, I feel very strongly about that one.
I've seen people.
I don't see what people are trying to achieve otherwise.
That the religious types are at odds with the idea of truth being even an ideal, let alone the ultimate ideal. Okay. And I think that's probably too harsh criticism of most religious people, because just because they believe something that, but
if it was a small fringe
that they think is untrue, doesn't mean that they don't value truth. They just think that their truths are higher than yours. If a religious person could turn around and say, I do value truth, and my truths make sense and yours don't, because mine's the word of God and yours is not. I don't particularly agree with their argument there, but they can still. I feel like they still could show that that's their ideal. They're just not maybe debatably not achieving it as well as people might want them to.
Yeah. Like, I think it was... Yeah, I can't remember if it was truth or reality was the starting keyword, but something Cammy said that was very, very profound.
Truth and reality are pretty much
the
same thing, really. I think
it was either truth or reality, but it was that which does not change when you stop believing it. Just breaks it down quite nicely. So you can believe something and you can be faithful about something, but it doesn't necessarily make it a truth. And, you know, you can call it a personal truth.
I'd
not an objective truth, and surely an objective
accurate representation of reality.
Yeah, so I see value in accurate representations of reality, objective truths.
Yeah.
I don't see value in like personal truths, and I hold some personal truths because I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, and I have like my own beliefs about death and everything like that, and they can only be personal truths. I don't value them as much as reality. They have value to me, but not as much.
Yeah,
but I'm kind of at odds with that.
Would you agree that you think say stuff like art, like music and things like that, can contain truth? They're not our truths, but they're not
they
truths
can be
in
representations.
But they can
of
contain and represent
truths.
Something that is true. Yeah.
I think especially
something that's
music can communicate more wisdom to people more than any philosopher can achieve in their life.
Yeah, I think so, because like words are limited.
Yeah,
words have a very limited quality,
and people can find truths in media that might not have been intentional as well. And that's not personal truths. They can, it just might happen to have a little shard of the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll just sign off for today, I guess.
I'll do.
Seems good. Till next time.